Snap and hold are good. That one is good!
Clemson did it. After their loss to Louisville earlier this year, it looked like the Tigers' hope of making the college football playoff were dead in the water. That was reiterated even more when they lost to South Carolina to close out the regular season. But with Miami losing to Syracuse, the hope to make the playoffs came back alive like The Undertaker, and hope is a dangerous thing in sports. Heading into this past week against SMU, all the Tigers had to do was win the game. And win they did. This is the Road to the College Football Playoff Clemson edition. But before we get into this, if you enjoy college football content like this, make sure to leave a like and subscribe. Also, let me know your score prediction for the Clemson vs. Texas game in the comment section below. Heading into the 2024 season, I'm going to be honest, I did not have a lot of belief in this Clemson Tiger team, even making a video on the fall of Clemson football before the Georgia game. They were coming off a season in 2023 where they finished 9-4, going 4-4 in conference play, which was 6th in the ACC. It was their worst performance in conference play since their 2010 season, when they finished 6-7 and lost the Meineke Carr Care Bowl. It was the first time they did not win double-digit games since the 2010 season and missed the college football playoff for the 4th straight year in a row. I wrote back in my video earlier this year, the offense was once again a mess, struggling to remain consistent. Once again, the Clemson offensive line struggled to take over in games and just did not perform well. Cade Klubnik also did not take the next step. Clemson Wire wrote back in January, situational awareness was lacking, and Klubnik failed to show everyone why he was such a highly touted recruit. Add in the struggles at wide receiver with health and explosiveness, the Tigers really didn't have a shot in 2023. Clemson fans will hope the offense can take the step this year, as they should have another elite defense like they always do. Rather than having national title expectations this year, they are being labeled as a surprise team that could make some noise. Phil Steele wrote, head coach Dabo Swinney's lack of the transfer portal use has been criticized, but Steele believes the team's continuity will be a strength with numerous returning starters, including quarterback Cade Klubnik. Not to mention, no active coach has made more college football playoff appearances than Swinney now that Nick Saban has retired. Clemson returned a lot of their offense from the 2023 season, and their success will hinge on what Cade Klubnik can do and whether their offensive line can improve as well. They will be tested almost immediately taking on number 1 Georgia in their opening matchup in Mercedes-Benz Stadium. Clemson was the only team besides the service academies to not use the transfer portal this offseason, but that did not stop them from earning a projected win total of 9 according to College Football News, and Phil Steele projected them to win the ACC once again. Their likely wins were Citadel, Stanford, and Virginia, with their 50-50 games being App State, at Florida State, Georgia and Atlanta, though it was a likely loss, Louisville, NC State, at Pitt, Virginia, and Virginia Tech, at Wake Forest. Cade Klubnik needed to step up and prove he was the real deal at quarterback, would have some young pass catchers and freshman wide receiver TJ Moore and Brian Wesco Jr., and they returned Tyler Brown. At running back, Phil Maffa was going to be the guy as a bruiser of a running back, with Jay Haynes being more of the quicker running back. There were questions around the defensive line, but Clemson has always been known for developing great defensive linemen. The linebacking core was young but returned Barrett Carter, who was viewed as one of the best in the nation, and the secondary was viewed as the team's strength heading into the season. The season would not get off to a great start, opening up in Atlanta against Georgia, which was technically a neutral site game, but basically a home game for the Bulldogs. The game would be scoreless after the first quarter, but Georgia would score first with a 30-yard field goal and took a 6-0 lead after a 55-yard field goal into half. But in the second half, it's where things really opened up as Georgia would cruise to a 34-3 win, and many began to worry if Clemson's offensive woes from the year prior would rear their ugly head once again. Maffa only rushed for 59 total yards on the ground, averaging 3.7 yards per carry, while Klubnik threw for 142 yards and an interception, while also being sacked twice. They would rebound with a big win over App State, where the offense would explode. Klubnik found Bryant Wesco Jr. for a 76-yard touchdown pass on the third play of the game. The Tigers never looked back as they would cruise to a 66-20 win over App State. Klubnik accounted for 7 first-half touchdowns, throwing for 378 yards and 5 touchdowns, and rushing for 2 touchdowns on the ground. Maffa went for 118 yards and 11.8 yards per carry, as the offense finished with 712 yards of offense for the game. According to ESPN, Klubnik became the first player in 25 years to complete 90% of his passes and to account for 7 touchdowns in the game while doing so. They continued their offensive explosion against NC State in the Textile Bowl as their defense forced 2 turnovers in the first quarter as the Tigers jumped to a 28-0 lead and a 45-7 lead at half. Klubnik had a 55-yard rushing touchdown and the Tigers would cruise to a 59-35 win, though the game was never in doubt. This was a historic game as the Tigers became the 14th FBS program and first ACC program to win 800 games in program history. The offensive explosion continued against Stanford as Clemson jumped out to a 17-7 lead at half against the Cardinal en route to a 40-14 win that saw Klubnik account for 5 total touchdowns. Phil Maffa would be the star against Florida State, rushing for 154 yards as the Tigers beat the Seminoles 29-13 in Doak Campbell Stadium, which led to Dabo's 174th career win, breaking Bobby Bowden's ACC record for career victories. Clemson outgained Florida State 500-250, recorded 28 first downs to FSU's 14, and did not turn the ball over in the contest, scoring on 7 drives. Clemson would then travel to Wake Forest to take on the struggling Demon Deacons. The Tigers would find themselves down early 7-0, and it was the first time they trailed in a game since the Georgia game, but the offense would explode in the second quarter as Klubnik connected with Antonio Williams and Troy Stellato, and Maffa rushed for 2 touchdowns to take a 28-14 lead into half. The offense would continue to cruise in the second half as Klubnik connected with Adam Randall, and Williams would throw a passing touchdown to Jake Brenningstool on a trick play in the third quarter. Clemson would cruise to a 49-14 win over the Demon Deacons. Clemson returned home to take on Virginia and found themselves ranked in the top 10 as they reached the 40-point mark for the 5th time on the season. Virginia would take a 10-3 lead in the second quarter before Clemson responded with a touchdown of their own, and Maffa found the end zone for the second time on the day, going up 17-10 at the break. Clemson would dominate the third quarter, outscoring the Cavaliers 21-0 as Klubnik found the end zone twice, and Williams rushed for a 36-yard score. Klubnik would find the end zone once again in the fourth as the Tigers won 48-31. It was the 8th time Clemson started ACC play 5-0 under Sweeney, and the 16th time since joining the ACC in 1953. Clemson was rolling before they ran into a roadblock in Louisville. Although running back Phil Maffa tallied a season-high 199 yards of total offense, including a season-high 171 rushing yards and a pair of scores on 30 carries, the Tigers would fall 33-21, which was their first loss to Louisville in the history of the series. Louisville dominated Clemson all day long, as the Cardinals rushed for 210 yards and 3 touchdowns on the ground. The loss came after their bye week, and it was a crushing blow as SMU and Miami continued to win, and the Tigers lost the ability of controlling their own destiny when it came to the ACC title race, and they did not play either of the two. Clemson would then travel to Lane Stadium to take on Virginia Tech in a game that looked like a dogfight through the first half. The Hokies would score early in the second quarter, and it would be the only points in the first half as the Tigers went into the break down 7-0. Clemson held a 7-1 edge in first downs in the frame while holding the ball for 11-24, but an interception and a 4th down stop ended both of Clemson's first quarter drives on Virginia Tech's side of the field. Virginia Tech's score would come on a blocked field goal return 77 yards, and Clemson's offense looked like the 2023 version throughout the first half. On their opening drive of the second half, though, Klubnik would find Cole Turner on a 29-yard touchdown to tie the game at 7, and on the next drive connected with Moore for a 41-yard touchdown to take a 14-7 lead. With the way the defense was playing for the Tigers, this felt like it was enough to win the game, but Klubnik would find Brenningstool on a 12-yard pass to finish a 10-play 93-yard drive to take a 21-7 lead. The touchdown came on Brenningstool's 113th career reception, moving him past Jordan Leggett, atop the school's record book for most career receptions by a tight end. The Tigers would win 24-14 as their defense forced 3 turnovers and held the Hokies to 228 total yards. The Tigers found themselves in another dogfight the following week against Pitt on the road. The loss would have ended their hopes of making the ACC title game and any chances of making the college football playoff. With 1:36 left, the Tigers trailed 20-17, taking over on offense on their own 25. Klubnik would lead a 75-yard game-winning drive, scoring on a 50-yard draw with 1:16 left to cap off a 3-play drive and secure the win 24-17. Clemson's defense registered a season high with 16 tackles for loss, and 8 sacks, including a school record 4 sacks from TJ Parker. Klubnik accounted for 3 touchdowns, throwing for 288 yards and 2 touchdowns along with his game-winning rushing touchdown. The Pitt game closed out ACC play with the Tigers sitting behind both SMU and Miami, still needing Miami to lose if they were going to make the ACC title game, with a 7-1 record in ACC play. Clemson would blow out the Citadel 51-14 before taking on South Carolina at home to close out the regular season. The defense played well throughout the day, but Lenore Sellers was too much as he would lead a game-winning drive to score an amazing rushing touchdown to take a 17-14 lead. Clemson would drive down the field, but a deflected pass would be picked off, giving the Gamecocks a 17-14 lead, and it looked like Clemson's hopes of making it back to the college football playoff were dead. But then a miracle happened. Miami would be upset by Syracuse, sending the Tigers to the ACC title game instead of the Hurricanes to take on SMU. A distraught locker room had to pull it together and get prepared to take on the Mustangs for what was expected to be a spot in the college football playoff. The Tigers came out fired up against SMU, forcing a fumble on the third play of the game. The forced fumble was TJ Parker's 6th of the season, giving him the school record that was set by Brandon May in 2009. On the second offensive play of the day for the Tigers, Klubnik connected with Wesco for a 35-yard touchdown. Klubnik then connected with Brenningstool on a 5-yard touchdown pass to take a 14-0 lead. SMU responded on its next possession with a 24-yard touchdown run by Kevin Jennings to finish a 10-play 75-yard drive, shrinking the deficit to 14-7 with 7:05 remaining in the first quarter. Klubnik would find Wesco again on a 45-yard touchdown pass, giving Clemson a 21-7 lead and forcing another turnover when Khalil Barnes intercepted Jennings on a throwaway attempt. Clemson went into half up 24-7, and it looked like SMU's playoff hopes were dead. SMU opened up the second half with a stop and a score on the first offensive possession when Jennings connected with Brashard Smith for a 10-yard touchdown to cap off a 7-play, 74-yard drive, cutting the deficit 24-14. Klubnik would connect with Brenningstool again for his 4th touchdown of the day to take a commanding 31-14 lead. SMU would rally back, scoring 17 unanswered points, with this score happening with 17 seconds left.
Not much pressure. Jennings, side of the end zone. Touchdown!
Then a miracle happened as Clemson returned the ensuing kickoff to their 45-yard line, and Klubnik connected with Williams on a 17-yard pass with 3 seconds left to set up this play.
Snap and hold are good. That one is good!
With the game-winning field goal at regulation hit by Charlotte native and freshman kicker Nolan Hauser, the Tigers had played their way into the college football playoff. The Tigers would earn the 12th seed for the inaugural 12-team playoff and will take on Texas and Austin, who is coming off an overtime loss to Georgia in the SEC title game. They will need a strong defensive performance against the Longhorns and need Klubnik to play the way he did against the Mustangs in the ACC title game if they want a shot to pull off the upset. The Longhorns were the number 26 team in the nation, averaging 33.6 points per game, and they are led by talented quarterback Quinn Ewers, who has an embarrassment of riches when it comes to the skill position players surrounding him. 9 different players have recorded at least 137 receiving yards on the season, and 8 of them had at least 21 receptions. ESPN's Andrea Adelson said, "Look at the way Georgia has beaten Texas in 2 games this year. This is going to have to be the best defensive performance of the season for the Tigers to have any shot. That means playing better against the run, but also making sure the pressure is on up front. One player to watch is defensive end TJ Parker, who has been outstanding in the second half of the season. Dabo Swinney knows how to win big games, and I would not doubt the Tigers to pull off a crazy upset. What do you think? What is the final score of the Clemson vs. Texas game on December 21st? Let me know in the comment section below. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to check out one of my other videos YouTube thinks you will love right here. Thank you so much for watching, and as always, remember to embrace the grind.